For many years, peace between Azerbaijan and Armenia seemed like a utopia. However, after the Second Karabakh War, a new reality has taken shape in the region. Today, Press TV reports that these thoughts were shared by Professor of Political Science at Khazar University, Ramiz Yunus, on his Facebook account. The professor stated that decades of conflict, 2 wars, tens of thousands of casualties, and hundreds of thousands of refugees have created the impression of perpetual war in the South Caucasus. The South Caucasus was regarded as a region of frozen conflicts. Here, the change of generations served not peace, but only the preservation of past traumas. For more than a century, from the Russian Empire to the Soviet Union and then to the post-Soviet period, the region has existed within a system of external control. Here, managed instability was used as a tool of influence. Even after the collapse of the USSR in 1991, this logic did not disappear. Moscow maintained its role as an indispensable mediator without allowing a final settlement, thereby tying the region to a zone of geopolitical dependence. End quote. Ramiz Yunus mentioned that the turning point occurred after the Second Karabakh War. Azerbaijan's victory fundamentally changed the regional status quo, which had been considered unchangeable for decades. For the first time in a long while, the conflict resulted in a clear military-political outcome, and with that, a new reality emerged where the previous formulas no longer worked. An additional catalyst for these processes was Russia's strategic mistake of launching a large-scale aggression against Ukraine on February 24, 2022. Drawn into a long-term war, Moscow lost both its resources and its ability to respond quickly to developments in the post-Soviet space, which opened a window of opportunity for regional actors, end quote. According to the professor, the leaders of Azerbaijan and Armenia took advantage of this opportunity. He stated that, for the first time in decades, Baku and Yerevan have begun direct dialogue, especially without Moscow's mediation, and the peace process has moved from a declarative stage to practical substance. Quote, the meeting held in Abu Dhabi in the summer of 2025, followed by the meeting at the White House on August 8, 2025, with the participation of U.S. President Donald Trump, became important milestones of the new phase. At those meetings, the main documents were signed, including the foundations of the peace agreement and the decision to open the Zanjezur corridor, which was symbolically called the Trump Road, end of quote. The analyst added that after the diplomatic statements, real processes began. Trains loaded with grain from Kazakhstan and Russia to Armenia began moving through Azerbaijani territory. Azerbaijan, in turn, started supplying fuel to Armenia. What seemed like fantasy 5 years ago has become an everyday reality, end of quote. The professor described the upcoming meeting between the leaders of Azerbaijan and Armenia in Abu Dhabi as an important political coordination ahead of U.S. Vice President James David Vance's visit to the region. In his opinion, Vance's visits to Baku and Yerevan indicate that the U.S. strategy for the South Caucasus has changed and that the region is now seen as a key position in the Central Asia, South Caucasus, Europe logistics corridor. Peace in the South Caucasus is also important for Washington in the broader context of stabilizing its role in the Middle East. In this context, Azerbaijan is not just a regional country, but also serves as a key hub for security and logistics, and a lasting peace with Armenia holds strategic significance for the United States as well, end of quote. The professor also specifically emphasized the Azerbaijani parliament's adoption of changes regarding Nakhchivan and the denunciation of the 1921 Moscow and Kars treaties. He believes that this step is not revanchist, but rather has a historical and legal character and signifies the closing of the last page of the colonial legacy. Ramiz Yunus emphasized that Azerbaijan has gone through a unique historical path. Quote, victory in war turns into victory in diplomacy, and then into victory on the peace agenda. End of quote. He also drew attention to the changes taking place in Armenia, noting that despite internal resistance, the acceptance of the new reality by political forces close to the government is an important step for a fragile peace. The analyst emphasized that there are still forces both inside and outside the region that benefit from confrontation and are not interested in the achievement of peace. According to the politician, this is precisely why international, symbolic, and political support for the peace process is of particular importance. In this regard, the presentation of the Zayed Award for Human Fraternity, named after Sheikh Zayed, to the leaders of Azerbaijan and Armenia in Abu Dhabi, serves as an important signal. He added that the continuation of this process with the active participation of the U.S. president could be further strengthened by initiatives such as the Nobel Peace Prize. At the end, Ramiz Yunus quoted the first president of the Czech Republic, Václav Havel. The quote is, "Peace is not a state, but a process." End the quote. Reporting from Baku, Namika Vasav, Today Press TV.